rapidly rotating storm system with a low pressure center, strong winds, and a spiral arrangement of thunderstorms that produce heavy rain. The tropical cyclone. There are different levels of tropical cyclones. The weaker type is a tropical storm with wind speeds between 39 and 74 miles per hour. The stronger type is a hurricane with wind speeds above 74 miles per hour. Tropical cyclones are called hurricanes in the North Atlantic Ocean and Eastern Pacific Ocean areas, which are the oceans that are east of the international dateline. Tropical cyclones are called typhoons in the Western Pacific Ocean areas and cyclones in the Indian Ocean and the Southern Hemisphere, both of which are the oceans west of the international dateline. Their energy comes from the evaporation of water from the ocean's surface, and they are dependent on a few factors. Surprisingly, the formation of a tropical cyclone is not fully understood by meteorologists. However, 6 factors have been identified that are key to the formation of a tropical cyclone. The first is that the water temperatures must be 26.5 Celsius or above, and the water depths must be 50 meters or more. This factor causes the overlying atmosphere to sustain the convection and thunderstorm because of its instability. The second is that there has to be rapid cooling with height, which allows the release of the heat from condensation that transfers its energy to sustain a tropical cyclone. The third is that there has to be high humidity, especially in the lower to mid-troposphere, as when there is more moisture in the atmosphere, disturbances in it are more prone. The fourth is that there should be low amounts of wind shear, as it tends to disrupt the circulation of the storm. The fifth is that the formation needs to occur 555 kilometers or 5 degrees latitude from the equator, as any closer to the equator there will not be a strong Coriolis effect, which deflects any wind headed towards the low pressure center, hence creating a circulation. This effect initiates and maintains their rotation. The final one is that the weather system has to be relatively disrupted in the first place, as tropical cyclones will not form spontaneously, and disrupted weather systems are favorable to a tropical cyclone's formation. Tropical cyclones usually form over large bodies of warm water such as seas or oceans. As seen from the map showing the tracks of all tropical cyclones between the years 1985 and 2005, they can be found in almost every ocean except for the South Atlantic, with the most forming in the West Pacific Ocean. Also seen is that none of the tropical cyclones are formed on the equator, nor do they cross the equator, as the effect there is very weak.
One of the most disastrous hurricanes ever recorded in recent history is Hurricane Sandy, which occurred in the North Atlantic Ocean areas. Hurricane Sandy was formed on October 22, 2012. Its strongest wind lasted 1 minute at 115 miles per hour, which is 185 kilometers per hour. Lowest pressure at 940 megabars. It created 148 direct fatalities and 138 indirect fatalities. The hurricane affected 24 states, causing more than $65 billion worth of damage. The storm lasted for 9 days.
It was a multi-billion-dollar storm. When Hurricane Sandy hit East Coast, bringing powerful winds to New York City, within a matter of hours, more than 800,000 residents were without electricity. Around 95% were left in the dark. In Lower Manhattan, adding to the massive blackout, was an explosion at Con Edison Electrical Substation.
NYU's Langone Medical Center was undergoing an emergency evacuation. Backup generators had failed the facility, leaving mothers in labor and about 20 babies in neonatal intensive care without proper medical technology.
In the Rockaway section of Queens, 80 to 100 houses were burned to the ground. The rising water flooded the streets, the tunnels, the subway lines, electrical substations, and knocked down trees. It turned Manhattan into a murky concrete swamp. The floodwaters devastated the majority of Manhattan's subway stations, creating chaos for New Yorkers. Workers who had to return to work encountered extreme transportation difficulties.
As the storm passed, New York City and surrounding areas attempted to return to daily life, but many businesses were still closed and public transportation was still in a mess. Cases of theft were also evident in Brooklyn and New Jersey. It was a very dangerous time for New Yorkers. Many families and lives were greatly affected by Hurricane Sandy. One of these lives was 15-year-old Denise Chan. She was in the car when it all happened.
I untied my shoes, and slipped out the back window. A police car then pulled up. The debris from the tree smashed our car and shattered the glass. But my mom and dad died there. Sometimes I ask myself, had the tree fell from the right, and it would have hit me and not my parents.
Another life that was taken was 52-year-old Claudine Christian.
She was the first American life to be taken by Hurricane Sandy. Such a little spark and firecracker in life. Just couldn't believe she was just taken. And
Many children were not prepared for this event.
Hurricane Sandy has a large impact on the general functioning of the society. Disaster losses, damage costs, money deficit, electricity shortages, flooding, food shortages, lack of transportation, lack of healthcare and attention, and the loss of lives. So we have received a question from our audience. How do you measure the level of economic development and its role in being able to respond to the hazard event? So we brought in an expert, Cassandra Hamilton, here to speak with you. Here to provide us with some special information about Hurricane Sandy. Here we go.
Hi guys, Cassandra here. So in order to answer that question, I guess I can say that the NYCDC, together with partners in the City of New York, is implementing programs to provide communities with resources to address a wide range of business and economic development needs following the Hurricane Sandy. The NYC Business Recovery and Resiliency programs include low-interest loans and expedited grants, funding opportunities for flood protection measures and innovative technologies that improve resiliency, and other critical community and development efforts to foster economic growth.
Thanks, Cassandra, for your expertise in answering this question. Many mitigation measures were undertaken in the United States. Much of the work involved installing more than 150 storm surge sensors along the Atlantic coast, from the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay to Massachusetts. These sensors helped officials predict when the hurricane would reach land. Rapid deployment gauges, which provide real-time information to help forecast floods and coordinate flood response activities in affected areas, were also placed in the area. Like many preparations for the other hurricanes, beaches and dunes often served as the first line of defense for many of the communities which are near the sea. Many sand walls were built a little offshore to delay the strong waves caused by the hurricane. President Obama signed emergency declarations on October 28 for several states expected to be impacted by Sandy, allowing them to request federal aid and make additional preparations in advance of the storm. Wow! Flight cancellations and travel alerts on the United States East Coast were put in place in the Mid-Atlantic and the New England areas. Over 5,000 commercial airline flights scheduled for October 28th and October 29th were canceled by the afternoon of October 28th. In addition, the National Guard and U.S. Air Force put as many as 45,000 personnel in at least 7 states on alert for possible duty in response to the preparations and aftermath of Sandy. Since the path of Hurricane Sandy was rather unusual, the storm was really unexpected for many of the citizens in the United States. Many citizens lacked the individual preparation for Hurricane Sandy, hence many emergency services, such as firefighters, police forces, and medical services, were exhausted. On November 2nd, the American Red Cross announced that they have 4,000 disaster workers across storm-damaged areas, with thousands more en route from other states. Nearly 7,000 people spent the night in emergency shelters across the region. More efforts were made by rock and pop stars such as Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, John Bon Jovi, Mary J. Blige, Sting, and Christina Aguilera, and hence raised around $23 million for American Red Cross hurricane relief efforts. However, on December 6th, 2013, fewer than half of those affected who requested disaster recovery assistance have received any. 30,000 residents of New York and New Jersey remain displaced. This included around 15 FEMA incident management assistance teams, 1,200 Department of Health and Human Services personnel, 9 federal urban search and rescue teams, 7,700 and above Department of Homeland Security disaster personnel, 1,100 and above Department of Agriculture, Interior, and other state agency personnel. It has been nearly 2 years since Hurricane Sandy struck, yet families still continue to struggle in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. In March 2013, the organization's U.S. Disaster Program helped establish a regional volunteer coordination system to match mission teams with long-term recovery projects in New York, New Jersey, Newark, and Easton. Current recovery work ranges from case management to rebuilding homes. Episcopal Relief and Development is currently supporting temporary housing and the collection and distribution of supplies in New York. The organization encourages people in impacted areas to continue reaching out to their vulnerable neighbors and assisting their churches with ongoing relief efforts. Those living outside affected areas can help by making a contribution to the Hurricane Sandy Response Fund, which will support short and long-term recovery activities as it becomes clearer where the need is greatest. Hurricane Sandy has been a disastrous event that has affected many countries and taken many lives.